We're excited to bring you more Grocery Shop original content. Please welcome to the stage Grocery Shop's Vice Presidents of Content, Krystina Gustafson and Joe Laszlo.
The hardest part about this whole presentation was just agreeing on the music. We're both from the tropics, so you'd think we'd have similar tastes, but we're actually pretty different.
I wanted Jimmy Buffett, and Joe wanted pretty much anything but Jimmy Buffett. But I think you know who won.
I'm from Hawaii, and I grew up surrounded by beaches and palm trees. When I moved to New York for college, I was super excited about the snow. I wasn't exactly prepared for snow, but I was really excited about it, and I still love it to this day.
I wasn't quite as convinced. It's been 10 years since I moved to New York from Florida, and I still cringe the first time the temperature drops below 70. But even though I may not love it, I have learned to deal with it.
So we kind of represent the two types of adaptation. We both had to adapt to the cold at some point in our lives. I did it willingly, while Krystina wasn't exactly on board. But in the end, we both adapted. Now we navigate winters very effectively.
Over the last 3 days, you've heard a lot about what you and your peers need to do to adapt. We wanted to take some time this afternoon to tie it all together and talk about the biggest trends you need to adapt to in order to position yourself for the future.
Yeah, we've organized the 75 biggest trends into 10 broad categories. They range from the new digital organization to building brands for today's consumers. We won't run through all 75, but we will run through 20 of the biggest trends in the next 20 minutes. So buckle your seatbelts and follow along with the handout on your chair.
We'll kick things off by talking about the new digital retail organization. Running a retail organization will increasingly mean running a technology company. That's going to impact everything from the types of employees you hire to how you recruit workers. The rise of the software developer is a great example. It's one of the fastest growing jobs in retail, jumping from number 8 in 2013 to number 3 in 2017. Retailers are finding creative ways to recruit these type of workers. Take a look at Walmart's recruiting page. They're quick to point out that working in retail doesn't have to mean leaving the West Coast. They're also finding new ways to recruit talent outside of Silicon Valley. They're working on a totally reimagined campus down in Arkansas that looks a lot like what you'd expect from the big tech companies out west. But of course, it isn't just about perks. When you look at Gen Z, nearly half are a racial or ethnic minority. Diversity and inclusion are extremely important to both millennials and Gen Z. So companies that ingrain these principles into their culture are going to have a huge leg up recruiting the next generation workforce. We're also going to see changes higher up in the organization. New titles are going to be created at the most senior levels to reflect the shift from a retail to a technology company. When you think about the most senior person with data in their title, it used to be a director or VP. But data's importance means those roles are moving up the ladder. If you look back to 2012, only 12% of Fortune 1000 companies had a chief data officer. That number jumped to 68% in only 6 years. This role is still relatively rare in grocery. We're starting to see it crop up at companies like Albertsons, but if you look more broadly, only 35% of the top 20 grocery retailers have a chief data officer or an equivalent role. As you think about how this trend could play out in your organization, you should think holistically about the role this person can play in every piece of your data strategy. That includes everything from ethical collection to its use.
Now let's look at the transformation of the retail industry. One trend here that we're seeing is that across retail, there's a demise of industry stalwarts, creating opportunities for new, more innovative companies. In grocery, it's mainly been mom and pop stores that have borne the brunt of this, at least so far. On the CB Insights list of 68 significant retail bankruptcies in the last 5 years, only 2 grocery retailers made that list, plus 1 C-store chain. However, consider the decline of the department stores and the fact that the grocery market often follows trends that played out in other retail sectors. Department stores were designed to serve a broad audience with something for everyone. They offered largely undifferentiated product lines. They had beloved brands with seemingly unshakable customer loyalty. Up to this point, they don't sound all that different from supermarkets. However, where department stores were complacent, grocery retailers are well aware of what's happening in other sectors. They're also aware of the need to reinvent themselves. There's always a chance that one or more of the grocery stalwarts will indeed be pushed out of the market. They may just not be able to adapt. But unlike department stores, there's time to invest, to evolve, and to thrive. Another aspect of industry transformation involves the real estate market. We see the retail real estate market evolving to feature shorter-term leases, smaller footprints, and pre-built-out stores. We'll talk a little later about the shift to smaller footprints, but on the lease front, terms are getting shorter and more flexible. For example, looking beyond grocery, the average lease length for general and apparel retailers in malls has declined from 6 years in 2007 to just 4.5 years in 2018. This sort of lease flexibility has encouraged the rise of the pop-up store. It sometimes seems like it's trendy startups that dominate the pop-up landscape. But in reality, the Lionesque Group, a specialist agency, said at Shop Talk this year that it's actually seeing interest grow fastest amongst established brands. One example of that is the Kellogg's Cafe store in New York City. The cafe started as a pop-up, but now it features 5,000 square feet of permanent breakfast goodness. While CPG companies have jumped in, we haven't really seen any grocery or supermarket brands enter the pop-up market yet. But why not? Any retailer thinking about a smaller scale footprint could trial that as a pop-up before fully committing.
Those aren't the only ways that physical retail is changing. We'll turn now to how store layouts and design are evolving. Joe just mentioned that lease terms are becoming more flexible. But size is another key way that stores are becoming less standardized. The data on the screen behind me shows the median square footage of grocery retail stores over the past 2 decades. If you take a look, you can see that bigger was generally better until about 2006. But stores have been shrinking ever since. Companies like Sprouts and Trader Joe's play a role here since their stores are designed to be smaller and more specialized. We're also seeing more traditional grocers open smaller stores in urban areas. But this trend is only going to accelerate as online grocery picks up steam and large grocery chains look to right-size their existing stores. We'll also see a change in how stores are measured, including a bigger focus on experiences per square foot. Many on Wall Street will disagree, but traditional metrics like traffic, sales per square foot, conversion, they're all becoming less important as the role of the store changes. Just think about digitally native brands like Glossier or Dirty Lemon. As customer acquisition costs rise, these companies are realizing that yes, rent is still expensive, but at least it's a known cost. They're building out picture-perfect stores in the hopes that shoppers will spread the word on social media. Essentially, they're using their stores as a means to get their customers to do their marketing for them. Tomorrow, you're going to hear from the Museum of Ice Cream. It isn't exactly a digitally native brand, but it is an excellent case study for this trend. And here's a metric they're probably thinking about quite a bit. If you do a search for the hashtag Museum of Ice Cream on Instagram, it turns up nearly 192,000 posts. MOIC? Another 75,000. Now, I'm not saying you should throw all your KPIs out the window, but it is worth thinking about new ways to measure the value of the store, including the number of mentions and followers it generates on social media.
Moving right along, we want to look at next-generation e-commerce and omnichannel. One clear grocery trend here is pickup. We see pickup options becoming more diverse and widespread, with a greater focus on drive-thru and other convenient offerings. Click and collect seems like a no-brainer in the grocery industry. And yet, despite much media coverage, only 21% of US grocery retailers offer the service today. Retailer promotions, however, are helping educate the market and prime consumer interest. As a result, approximately 46 million people in the US will use click and collect for grocery this year. Tremendous year-on-year growth. Pickup is an example of an area where you can start simply and evolve, from in-store to curbside to other locations out in the community. As Zia mentioned yesterday, one good example of this is Loblaw in Canada, which offers curbside pickup, but also pickup at transit stations, pharmacies, and other strategic spots. Someone might even start a pickup hub as a line of business. Some firms, like Happy Returns, create drop-off spots working with local retailers, enabling returns from a variety of different merchants in one location. A clever startup could similarly step in to deploy customer pickup hubs on behalf of multiple grocery and other providers. Next on our list of trends is mobile, and in particular, mobile's growing impact on the in-store shopping experience. According to Progressive Grocer, almost 40% of retailers offer a mobile app. That's pretty good, but it could and it should be far higher. What's at the leading edge of mobile experiences these days? Well, one thing we like is Magic Scan and Go. If you saw any of the Sam's Club talks earlier, they've talked about this a lot. They're trialing a next-generation scan and go service that recognizes items rather than barcodes. Another good example of mobile is reducing food waste. Hy-Vee is trialing a service that alerts customers to deals on items that are close to their best by dates. But my personal favorite grocery app comes from Portugal's Sonai. Sonai offers an app called Tira Vez, which replaces the deli take a number ticket. You get a number on your phone, and then you're free to go and do other shopping. Your app alerts you when it's nearly your turn at the counter. I would totally download any grocery app that offered this feature. The bottom line here is, as you think about your mobile offering, don't just think about what the tech can do. Think about the little hassles in your stores and the ways you can leverage smartphones to help smooth them out.
But of course, it isn't just about mobile. There are countless other ways that technology is creating new retail experiences. We'll focus now on how technology is making every aspect of the store more intelligent. If you take a look at this market map, you can see that dozens of solutions are being created for physical retail. Startups focused on in-store technology raised a record $2 billion in funding last year. That's nearly double what they brought in 4 years earlier. Historically speaking, a lot of the focus on in-store tech has been on customer-facing solutions. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the magic mirrors and customer service robots. We're also starting to see a lot of activity on the operations side. But I'd say that some of the best in-store technologies are the ones that benefit both customers and workers. Take smart shelves. They not only save store associates hours of manual labor that used to be spent changing price tags, but they can also be used to create engaging content for shoppers. It's always going to be important to think about time savings and ROI when you're investing in store technologies. But you should also be on the lookout for opportunities where a single technology can have multiple benefits. Looking now at a specific solution, cashierless checkout is arguably the biggest way that technology is going to create a new store experience. As Zia mentioned yesterday, checkout-free solutions are a bit of a darling in the VC world, and you can probably understand why. They're sort of like smart shelves in that they check the box for a better customer experience and smoother operations. They can also have a pretty big impact on the top line. According to eMarketer, 23% of shoppers said the primary reason they left a store without making an intended purchase was because the line was too long. This technology is largely still in testing, but you should expect to see more of it soon. In a recent survey of about 400 retailers globally, 28% said they're testing or piloting cashierless systems. Now, this technology is not going to be right for every retailer. And as we learned from Amazon at last year's Shop Talk, it's going to take some time for customers to get used to it too. But as the underlying AI improves and infrastructure costs come down, you should expect to see it move beyond the C-store.
Our next stop on the circle of innovation looks at AI and machine learning. While AI's impact on retail runs the gamut from cashierless checkout to supply chains to marketing, we've chosen to focus here on two aspects of AI's transformation of product discovery and selection. The first of these has to do with AI's ability to make highly relevant, tailored product recommendations, helping customers identify products that are right for them and their families. This becomes especially important with the rise of specialized diets. With 38% of Americans following some kind of specialized diet this year, the number of retailers have partnered with AI startups to provide tailored product and recipe recommendations. AI, along with trust-building steps like adding dietitians to your staff, will help grocery retailers get more customer-centric around their shoppers' specific dietary needs. And, while it's easy to say that you're customer-centric, executing on that is a different story. Being truly customer-centric is not about doing the easy thing. It's about doing the thing your customers need, selling them the products that are the best for them in the ways that they want to buy them, even if it's not an immediate benefit to you. The second half of our AI story is in some ways a mirror image of the first. Done right, AI can inspire more serendipity at the grocery store, helping retailers and brands select, stock, and suggest products that will delight shoppers. Overgeneralizing, consumers today love trying new products and flavors. It feels like every year brings some trendy new berry, broth, or legume that customers are clamoring for. And there are more and more brands for shoppers and retailers to choose from too. Krystina's going to say more about that in just a minute. AI-based systems are way better than humans at inferring patterns across a wide variety of data. That can include purchases, searches, location data, social media trends. It can take all of these kinds of data and turn them into meaningful, insights-based recommendations. These capabilities will help keep shoppers coming back to discover new things, rather than simply returning out of habit.
Yeah, and we're going to shift gears a little bit now to talk about building brands for today's consumers. We've already seen a huge spike in brand creation over the past decade, but the number of brands coming to market is only going to keep increasing. The IAB recently put out a list of 250 direct brands to watch. Of the 91 companies they listed in grocery or CPG, not a single one was founded before 2009. The ability to launch and scale new brands largely boils down to two factors: the growth and cost decline of commerce platforms and other technologies, and the rise of social media. But it's also driven by consumers' willingness to experiment with new products. A recent survey found that 56% of US adults are always open to trying new brands, products, or experiences. That's up from only 39% a decade ago. And going back to Joe's previous point, it's not just that consumers today are willing to try new brands. They want to be the ones to discover new brands. I still remember when I thought I had discovered Halo Top ice cream. I was so proud of myself that I took a photo of all the different flavors in my freezer and sent it around to my friends. Needless to say, I wasn't quite the trendsetter that I thought I was. Large CPG companies will never be able to keep up with this rate of brand creation. But they can replicate the moment of discovery by introducing new products, flavors, or packaging. As we've heard over the past few days, a growing number of brands will also take a stance on social issues. A recent report found brands that are recognized for a high commitment to purpose have grown at more than twice the rate of others. This trend is going to become even more pronounced as Gen Z hits their prime spending years. Fully 2/3 of millennials and Gen Z have said they prefer buying from brands that have a purpose. But this can be tricky for brands to navigate. If you don't know Unilever's new CEO, the guy on the screen behind me is Alan Jope. He recently coined the term woke washing to call out companies that run purpose-driven campaigns but don't take real action. Younger shoppers are also quick to call out companies who view purpose as a PR campaign. It sounds simple, but brands need to select issues that align with their company mission and then actually deliver on the promises they're making.
Next, we'll touch on the new era of marketing ROI and attribution. One key development here has to do with automation and the digital transformation of marketing. Online advertising hit a milestone in the US last year, crossing $100 billion in revenue for the first time. It also now outpaces television as the largest single ad medium in the US. Often these days, the ads you see are determined by an auction, conducted in the instant you visit a website or an app with computers doing the bidding. The data analysis that goes into this process means it's increasingly rare to see a totally irrelevant ad. That's reinvented the industry and led to the rise of the marketing data scientist. Companies that are struggling with the rocket science-y new world of data and rapid technology change, they should look closely at their own marketing divisions, who have hopefully adapted to these trends over the last 10 years. And speaking of TV, the other marketing trend we wanted to highlight relates to the decline of mass media. In some ways, this is the best of times for media. We live in a new golden age of television with more great programs available than ever before. However, the very quantity of great shows has helped fragment the audience. Just looking at the audiences for some key event TV moments since 1980 shows how much less mass the mass audience has really become. Digital media, by contrast, excel at reaching specific audiences. And even within digital, the quest for precision and authenticity can prompt brands to prioritize emerging platforms away from big hits. For example, Kroger this year ran a back-to-school campaign on TikTok, the trendy new music video and social platform popular with US tweens. While mass media's decline makes marketing harder, it also makes marketing better. Marketers who once accepted that much of their spend was wasted now leverage first and third-party data, machine learning, and the power of automation to focus their messages laser-like on exactly the people most likely to respond to them.
We'll turn now to innovation strategies for brands and retailers. One strategy our team is especially excited about is the unlikely partnerships that we're starting to see between competitors. You just heard from Joe about Kroger's partnership with TikTok, but they're also partnering with Walgreens on a couple of new store initiatives. These two companies have traditionally been considered competitors, but they also have a lot to gain from partnering up. Kroger gets more visibility for its private label products and convenient pickup hubs for shoppers that don't live near one of its stores. Walgreens gets a more robust fresh assortment and extra foot traffic. But Walgreens and Kroger are far from alone. Looking to a different part of the industry, you can find products from Dick's Sporting Goods in Macy's latest story concept. Boxed is partnering with the department store chain Century 21. This type of willingness to work with one another is a recognition that it isn't a zero-sum game. In order to thrive, you need to think of creative ways to identify and work with new partners. Retailers will also turn to digitally native startups for growth. As some of you heard yesterday from our colleague Ken Kassar, 50% of digitally native brands have some sort of wholesale relationship with retailers. They're also big acquisition targets, and it's not just because they've got great products. As brands and retailers look to add new capabilities, startups' digital expertise is becoming a bigger part of the equation. Edgewell called out Harry's strength in direct-to-consumer marketing when it purchased the brand for over $1 billion. Freshly's advanced analytics and distribution network were big factors in the investment it got from Nestle. Product's always going to play a role in acquisitions, but emerging brands are going to need to offer additional capabilities to validate some of the lofty valuations we've been seeing.
Last but not least on our circle, we touch on improving operational efficiency. And first here, we wanted to talk about efforts to reduce waste. Over 40% of food produced in the United States every year is wasted. As we heard from Luke Jensen yesterday and many others over the last couple of days, there's a growing imperative to reduce this waste all along the supply chain. Technology companies are working to track food's journey and extend its shelf life, improve the accuracy of demand forecasting, and dynamically reprice food close to its expiration. But it's not just about technology. Creative tactics, like the way Korea's E-Mart packages bananas, can also help and generate a lot of publicity on social media. Confronting food waste is an opportunity for the industry to take a leadership role around an important sustainability topic. Companies like Tesco are already doing this. And there's a long and growing list of startups targeting food waste, bringing a wide variety of innovative ideas to the market. Whether your company is just starting to address this issue or is well along on its journey, we'd encourage you to investigate them as a source of creative approaches to this important problem. Another area where technology is having a direct impact on operational efficiency is in helping companies better schedule, train, and retain their workforces. The cost to US business of losing and replacing hourly workers exceeds $350 billion every year. Up until recently, scheduling, tracking, and training the hourly workforce looked largely like this. Modern systems, however, are smartphone-based and can include things like scheduling, training, communication, even payroll information. And they often add gamification, helping to make work more fun. One example of that comes from Walmart, which created a game called Spark City that puts you in the shoes of a rookie department manager. It's free in the Google and Apple app stores. One of the things that differentiates grocery is the number of leaders who have built their careers at single companies. For example, Amy McClellan of Martin Supermarkets is speaking tomorrow. Sorry to pick on you, Amy. She started there part-time in high school, and she's a senior vice president there today. Retaining that sense of a place where people can grow their roles as they increase their skills helps attract talent, even as your workforce and the tools for managing it are changing rapidly.
So wrapping up, whether or not you're prepared for your first snow, it's coming. And to survive, you have no choice but to adapt. What is up to you is whether you'll accept these changes reluctantly or make the most of them.
And while we don't have all the answers, we hope we've offered you some useful context to help you think about the ways you need to adapt for the future of grocery. It's going to be an iterative process, and we and the rest of the Grocery Shop team couldn't be more excited to create this future with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe and Krystina.